important for military control. So the military or the FARC or anybody would ask them like, you have to leave this area because otherwise you could be killed. Or the FARC or the narcos would tell them like, you have to live here because we want to grow coca, and if you don't leave, we're gonna kill you. So people had to leave their country, their houses, and they had to go towards the center of the country, to the coast, to other parts of the country, most likely towards the cities. And then we have a massive issue, that is that Colombia, about 7 or 8% of the population controls more than 80% of the country, in a sense that there's still, like back to the colonial times, there's lots of landlords. There's a few percentage of people, 7%, that controls or that owns more than 80. That's a crazy number if you think about the size of Colombia. Colombia is a massive country, and it's only controlled in terms of the landscape by 8%. That's very unfair, especially in a country where many people want to work on the countryside, but they were not able to do it because there was no land for them. So then the government decided to establish one law, now that the conflict is over, that it's called restitution of land. That basically means that if you are an owner of a house, or for a countryside house, and then you had to go away from it because of the conflict, you can go back and claim it. But unfortunately, because remember, Colombia is a corrupt country, unfortunately, many people have gone back to their countryside, to their houses, and they've found that there's already a house, or somebody bought the land and they have a paper saying that it's theirs. The problem with the displaced people is that they were forced to move out of the house from one day to the other, and sometimes they would put a gun on their face and say like, you have to leave, otherwise we'll kill you, or sign this paper saying that you're selling this for us to like $2, or we'll kill you. So people left without any documentation, or people were traditionally owned that house for a lot of years, many generation after generation. So they want to go back to find out that it's been sold to somebody. Who has the control or the information of which land is available for restoration of land is, of course, our very corrupt politicians. So not all of them are bad. So nowadays there's kind of like a small paragraph of the restoration of land that says that if you have a land, like this one for example, and if you don't have it as for a productive purpose, so if you don't do agriculture, you don't do anything that is productive with the land, you have to give it back to the government. They're gonna sell it, buy it from you, and then they're gonna give it to the people that need it. So in theory it sounds very nice. But of course, there's always kind of like the main issue. So the main issue is that there's a small paragraph that says that if you have a kettle, if you have cows, if you're doing milking, if you're doing anything, then that means that you're doing a productive thing. So all of this land, as you see, it's not being productive at all, but they have 2 or 3 cows, which means that the government cannot take it to give it to the people, because if they were to do that, they would be not following the law. So there's like this ones, there's many examples like of fields that could be used for a productive purpose, but because of the law, people are not able to do it. Colombia is actually the country with the most amount of space for cows in the world. So there's more space actually for cows than there are for humans in Colombia. And then basically because the cows are the owner of all of this land. So if you see, there's white spots all around, and these are cattle or horses that control this area, because if they were not around, they would be taken by the government. So that's why you have them all around. And because they are the owners, basically they wander all around freely, the cows. I remember that the first thing that grows out of the palm tree leaves are the leaves, and the cows will eat that directly because it's very delicious, full of minerals. So that's the first thing that they eat. So naturally the palm trees won't be able to grow around here unless they take the cattle out. And if they take the cattle out, the government will take their land. So that's why it's kind of like a vicious circle of some of the problems that are around the Cocola Valley. So nowadays many people are trying to incentivize initiatives where they allow reforestation, so like they allow the palm trees to grow naturally. But then there's another, that is the last issue that we're going to address from the Cocola Valley, that is the social issue. So we were talking yesterday about cocaine a little bit, and the main issue of Colombia is that in Colombia we try to avoid gray zones. Everything is either black or white. So, and the good example to understand the problem with the palm trees is coca leaves. So in Colombia, coca leaves are completely forbidden, coca bushes, because they, as a result of coca fields, there's cocaine, and we don't want that. But remember that in many other countries like Peru and Bolivia, they still allow coca leaves because they're a very delicious plant. In Colombia, they don't accept that because if you were to have some like traditional fields for the medicine or for the indigenous, that could easily lead towards the fact that the narcos would approach them and they would take advantage of this permit and then have cocaine kind of like legal in a way. So the same thing happens with the Cocola Valley. Remember that all of this is a protected area, and nowadays the palm tree is a protected plant. In theory, you shouldn't do anything with it. Like, you're not allowed to tear it down, you're not allowed to cut the trunk, you're not allowed to use the leaves, you're not allowed to use the walks or anything. Because if you allow it, then that's going to lead towards extinction of the plant. That it's something that people are avoiding since there's awareness of how important it is for us. So they don't allow any reforestation, because if they were to allow it, I'm sure in a couple of years there would be a company selling products out of palm walks, because that would lead towards a very profitable business. So that's why the palm trees, they don't allow them to reforest, because they could eventually become an excuse to be exploited. So naturally they won't grow because of the kettle, because of the dense forest. By law they cannot let it grow, because that would allow commercialization of the product. And as well, politically speaking, the owners of this land, they don't want the palm trees to still exist, because as soon as the palm trees are gone, they're going to be able to plant anything that they want. Nowadays they're not allowed to plant anything, because if they were allowed to do it, that could lead towards the palm trees falling. And remember that they're trying to preserve the only few ones that there are. So that's why the avocados, they were highly controversial, because they did it without any permit. But if you see where the avocados are, is basically where the palm trees are no longer there. So there's kind of like a loophole where people, they are allowed to plant because there's no more palm trees. So that's one of like all of the main issues that we're addressing on the Cocola Valley. So the only, like one of the main reasons why the Cocola Valley still exists and it hasn't been exploited in commercial purposes by avocados or any other thing is because of tourism. Nowadays, even though tourism is not profitable at all for Salento, for example, in a sense, like out of this Cocola Valley, only one owner, that is the owner of the private property, is getting the money. So it's not a business that it's growing for the whole country or the whole region. So even though like it's only for one big owner that gets the money, people are still very interested in protecting it and create awareness with tourism, so people can protect the palm trees. That is the only way that we're gonna be able to preserve it. So now we're gonna go closer to the palm trees. There's really beautiful photos that you can take from this area. So I'll show you a really nice photo that I've taken several times from here, and I highly recommend that you take it because it's a really nice souvenir. Let's see where it is. It's basically an upside down, like a vertical panorama. So you look very small. And,